Welcome to This Explainer, where we're going to unpack the incredible, deeply layered story of Eusébio da Silva Ferreira, pulling directly from our source material. We are going way beyond the basic highlight reels today to break down the life of one of the absolute greatest athletes of the 20th century. Okay, so let's dive right into this entirely bizarre and cinematic story. I mean, it literally starts like a Cold War spy thriller, but ends up fundamentally reshaping our entire understanding of global sports. It's this wild tale of unparalleled athletic genius, geopolitical tension, and a rapidly shifting cultural landscape. Part 1. The Boy from Mozambique, Humble Beginnings. Born in poverty in 1942 in Lourenço Marques, which we know today as Maputo, a young Eusebio honed his phenomenal skills on the dirt fields of the Mafalala neighborhood. He would actually skip school to play barefoot from sunrise to sunset, and his gear, just an improvised ball made out of socks stuffed with old newspapers. It was right here in these incredibly harsh conditions that his raw, explosive talent was really forged. Part 2. The Great Transfer Heist, a covert operation. Now, what's really fascinating here is the rapid sequence of near misses before Benfica finally secured him. First off, a Juventus scout spots him when he's just 15 years old, but his mother, she outright refuses to let him move to Italy. Later, he's offered to the Brazilian club Sao Paulo, but they completely refuse to pay the required transfer fee. Finally, word reaches the legendary Benfica coach, Bela Gutmann, who quickly moves to sign the teenager. But, well, signing him and actually getting him on the pitch were going to be two entirely different things. See, his original youth club in Mozambique was actually a feeder team for Benfica's absolute fiercest rivals, Sporting. So naturally, the transfer caused massive outrage. To prevent Sporting from sabotaging the deal, or literally kidnapping their new star, Benfica quite literally had to smuggle Eusebio into Portugal. No joke, they gave him a woman's alias, codename Ruth Meloso, and hid him away in a hotel in the Algarve with actual bodyguards for months until the dust finally settled. Part 3. Conquering the world stage. The Black Panther. 638. That is the staggering number of goals Eusebio scored in just 614 official matches for Benfica. Just take a second to process that statistic. He averaged more than a goal a game over an incredible 15 seasons, locking down 11 championship titles and a European Cup. The guy was simply a force of nature. And then there's the physical shock factor. 11 seconds is all it took for him to run 100 meters at his peak. He combined this literal Olympic-level track speed with absolute raw power, just unleashing dynamite from his legendary right boot. Defenders honestly couldn't catch him, and goalkeepers for sure couldn't stop his shots. This all culminated when he absolutely dominated the 1966 World Cup in England. And here's a great little detail. During the squad number draw, his teammate Antonio Simões took Eusebio's preferred number 11, leaving Eusebio stuck with the unlucky number 13. Simões basically told him to demystify the number, and Eusebio did exactly that. He won the Golden Boot with 9 goals, famously rescuing Portugal from a 3-0 deficit against North Korea by scoring 4 unanswered goals himself to secure a miraculous 5-3 win. He literally turned the number 13 into a symbol of sheer terror for opposing defenders. Part 4. The Black Panther versus Pelé. Twin Titans. Now, you really can't talk about the 1960s without comparing Eusebio to the only other player who could challenge his throne, Brazil's Pelé. Their parallel journeys were incredibly similar. They were the first black global superstars in a sport that had previously been dominated by white Europeans. Both became these massive living symbols for their nations, and interestingly, both had their careers heavily restricted by their governments, forbidden from transferring abroad right at their peak. Because those club transfers were restricted, they very rarely met on the pitch. But when they did, it was monumental. In 1962, a 21-year-old Pelé gave an absolute masterclass to beat Eusebio's Benfica in the Intercontinental Cup. But then in 1966, Eusebio got his revenge, eliminating a severely battered Brazilian side at the World Cup. They even had this totally bizarre twilight clash in the United States in 1975 that literally ended with fans storming the pitch. Yet despite that fierce rivalry, there was just this immense, profound mutual respect between the two greatest players of their generation. As Pelé himself said, a player like Eusebio comes along every 50 years. When Eusebio passed away, Pelé was actually among the very first to mourn the loss of his peer. Part 5. A Dictator's National Treasure. But as we peel back the layers of our sources, the explainer takes a decidedly darker turn into the geopolitical realities of that era. Following his stunning 1966 World Cup success, Eusebio was offered a massive, totally life-changing contract by Italian giants Inter Milan. This deal would have allowed him to earn his entire yearly Benfica salary in just a single month. It was the absolute dream move, but the move was abruptly halted. Our sources present this incredibly stark contrast. Here's a man who could outrun literally any defender and played with absolute joyous freedom on the pitch. Yet he was entirely trapped off the pitch by his own government. Impartially reporting the history here, the Portuguese dictator at the time, Antonio Salazar, formally declared Eusebio a state asset, a national treasure. And, this wasn't just some nice honorary title. It was a strict legal restriction that outright banned him from leaving the country to play elsewhere. He was forced to remain at Benfica until the regime eventually fell in 1974, which was well past his physical prime. Part 6. The Post-Colonial Legacy. Global Migration. To truly understand his broader legacy and the academic source we've pulled from, we need to quickly define two traditional concepts of citizenship. First, jus soli, which means citizenship based on where you are born, territorial birthright. And second, jus sanguinis, which means citizenship based on blood ties or the nationality of your parents. Traditionally, these two concepts dictate exactly who gets to represent a country in international sports. While in his academic paper, Gijsbert Onk uses Eusebio's 1966 World Cup appearance as a prime example of colonial and post-colonial reality. Onk explores how Eusebio completely complicated those strict definitions of national identity during the colonial era, really challenging the whole idea of an imagined community. Think about it. As a Mozambican-born player representing Portugal, the colonial power, Eusebio challenged the very notion of what a national team even looks like. He became a focal point in the debate over who truly has the right to wear a nation's crest, operating in this highly complex space between colonized subject and celebrated national hero. And why this matters so much today is that Eusebio wasn't just out there breaking goal-scoring records. He was the first African-born player to truly shine at the World Cup, and the first non-white player to win the Ballon d'Or in 1965. He was literally laying the essential groundwork for the diverse, modern international game we see today, forcing the entire world to re-examine what citizenship actually means in the realm of sports. Eusebio's unbelievable journey from playing with a rag ball in Mozambique to resting in Portugal's national pantheon forces us to ask a really profound question. Next time you're watching the World Cup, think about this. When we cheer for a national team today, are we cheering for borders or are we cheering for the boundless journeys of the players themselves? Thanks so much for joining this explainer.